Hi everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and today I'm here with the design team post for Fairy Stamper video team. Today I'm going to be making this card using Dixie, Trixie, and Pixie fairy stamps, Tree Stump, Believe sentiment stamp, Fireflies stamp, Rocks, Fairy Dictionary, Fairy Flower, and then the Thank You limited edition first anniversary stamp set. Now I'm going to start off by making a background panel. This panel is 5.5 inches square. I'm going to be using 3 shades of blue, a light blue for that bottom part, a mid-tone blue for the part that I'm using there with the stencil, and then a darker blue that I will use with a stamp, with the Fairy Dictionary stamp. I did spray some Pixie Spray on the back of that stencil so that it stays there. And you see that I have the piece of paper so I don't get my fingerprints all over while I'm blending this together. The one thing you want to make sure when you're blending and you're using a piece of paper like that, just to not get it all over your fingers and your fingerprints in the design itself, is to make sure that you do not blend over that piece of paper, because that will give you a hard line, and that line is kind of hard to get out of there. So you do want to make sure, unless you're doing it purposely, that you want that hard line in there, that you're not running it over there like that. So now with the Fairy Dictionary, I'm going to stamp it twice, one on kind of each side of the background panel. And again, I'm using that darker blue. I don't have a lot of colored ink. I don't buy much of it. I honestly don't know if I've really bought any at all. I usually just get them through kits and different things like that that I've ordered. I don't in general use it a lot, so far this has been working well for me, not having to purchase any. I'm going to be using some green and red for the fairy flower that I'm going to stamp onto that. Now my thought process for this card was to have the fairies, the 3 fairies kind of stepping down. So I'm going to be stamping that flower in the red and green. I'm going to be stamping the tree trunk in brown, and then the rock in a dark gray. And that will kind of be the steps that the fairies are using to step down. And I stamped it. I like using some type of stamping platform just to make sure if it doesn't come out, the stamp isn't real clear. It makes it so much easier to restamp so that I don't have to think about and worry whether I'm going to be able to restamp it if for some reason it didn't come out well. So here I am with the tree stump, and like I said, I'm going to be using a brown. I believe it's a Your Next Stamp ink cube. The other 2 were Hero Arts. I used some Distress inks. So I'm just kind of using a whole gamut of different color and types of ink throughout this process. This is going to be a Hero Arts dark gray, I believe it's called charcoal, that I'm going to be using to stamp this. Now the other thing, after I stamp this rock, and then I'm going to end up stamping the fairies first, I'm going to go back into the rock with an alcohol marker and color it in just to make sure it has that definition in there. Now I was kind of trying to figure out, I originally wanted the sentiment up in that top right hand corner. I decided, well, not so much I decided, it wouldn't fit there after I stamped the fairies where I wanted the fairies, and so I thought that was kind of more important. But it also ended up working out perfectly with the butterfly and the fireflies being able to fit in there as well. So I'm going to end up stamping it in that bottom left corner. But I'm going to stamp that after I stamp the fairies. Now, if you watch videos of mine and I'm doing a lot of stamping, I tend to like to stamp multiple images at one time if I can. So if I can get away with it and save a little bit of time, I will definitely do that. But one thing you have to worry about or think about, which is where the stamping platform actually comes in really handy, is if the stamps are just even slightly different depths, you're not going to get a clear image on maybe some of them. So if you look at this, that middle stamp really did not stamp at all. So I'm going to clean off that bottom stamp because she stamped really well. I'm going to go back in and stamp the other two and stamp those again, and that time that one came out really well, but I was still missing a little bit out of that last stamp, so I cleaned off that second one and then popped that last one on there. So like I said, even though it is still time saving, you do have to kind of watch that, and like I said, that's what makes the stamping platforms work really well, particularly when you're stamping multiple stamps or you're stamping solid images or very large stamps. Those platforms really do come in handy. So now I'm going to add the sentiment as well as the fireflies and then the little butterfly from that thank you stamp set. And for all of these black images, I am using the Fairy Hugs stamp pad. It gives you really nice, crisp, clean lines. Most of the time you can do it in one stamp, so you're not having to restamp it multiple times. Like this particular instance, all of these stamps stamped really well. I think they were far enough apart to make sure they all hit the paper really well and easily. And then I'm going to use some alcohol markers to fill in some color on the butterfly and the fireflies. I'm using a green and a really dark, hot kind of pink for the butterfly. I'm going to use yellow and then a lighter green for the fireflies, just to give them a little bit of color and to kind of make their bottom half glow. Once I finish up with that, I am going to cut the panel down to 5 1/4 inches because I want a background panel on here. So I'm just going to decide the best areas, and I'm going to kind of take a little bit off of every side in the best way to not ruin the images, but to be able to get it down to that 5 1/4 inches. And then I'm going to end up using a background panel that is yellow, that is cut at 5 1/2 inches, and the card itself is cut at 5 1/2 inches. Now you will see that I'm going to try to tape this down to the card base, and the card base did not cooperate on how I was trying to put that on there, so I have to pull it up. Now, I am going to try to salvage this without having to cut out new card bases and back panels. Now, because this is pretty much going to be completely covered by the front panel, I'm not too worried about the yellow. I do want to make sure that you can't see any damage on the inside of the card, so you kind of see me looking at it there, just to verify that you can't really see where I pulled it off and that it was kind of messed up. And it worked out, so it was okay, and it didn't end up being in a big issue with it. So I'm going to get that panel on there, and then I'm going to get out my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. I'm going to fill in the center of the flower. I'm going to fill in the fireflies, the butterfly. I'm going to fill in the fairy, but I'm not going to do the wings yet because I'm going to end up going back with some alcohol markers and coloring the wings in a little bit, and then I will go back at the end and put some more Spectrum Noir sparkle on those wings. Then to finish off this card, I'm going to grab a couple sequins and kind of place those around the sentiment, and that will finish up this card. So I want to thank everybody for joining me. I hope you enjoy these videos. If you have anything that you would like to see, please let us know. I'm sure the design team would love to put something together that somebody really wants to see or learn about. You can make sure you subscribe to the channel, check out the Fairy Hugs Facebook group for lots of inspiration there, and you can post your own designs. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining me. Take care. I hope everybody stays healthy, and I hope everybody had a fabulous new year. Take care. Have a great day. Thank you.